The subject of my talk this morning is meditation. I gave a talk on meditation some time back. That was the first part, and this is going to be the second part of the talk, which is on meditation. I'd like to start with a story. There is a man named John. He was married, but unfortunately his married life was not that happy. It was an unhappy marriage. So his mind was often disturbed and upset. So one day while driving through the street of the town in which he lived, he saw a big sign with the picture of a bearded Indian holy man. It was written there, Saint so and so from India, from the Himalayas. And there it was written, he teaches meditation, and meditation can help solve all problems. So he saw that sign. So he then went to that holy man. Of course, he was not a genuine holy man. And as Jesus said, beware of false prophets, he was one of them. And so John had to pay $3,000 to learn how to meditate. And so he came home, he sat on a chair with his backbone erect, and with his eyes shut, he started meditating. His wife saw that. He said, "What is this new gimmick? Why are you sitting like this? I asked you to take the garbage out this morning, but you didn't do that." And the wife started scolding him. John remained calm and quiet. He did not reply to his wife's charges. And then his wife said a few more unpleasant things, and then she bolted out of the door of John's room. And she said, "I am going back to my parents. I don't want to live with you." And then George could hear the car engine start and far away. Then John opened his eyes and said, "Oh yes, meditation really works." So meditation really works, it can solve all the problems. Well, this is just a story. The other day when I gave the talk on meditation, I said, meditation is no other than concentration of the mind on one thought. That thought should be the thought of divinity. But some of you may think, is the divinity something which can be known by the mind? But the scriptures of Hinduism say that God is avang manasogocharam. God cannot be described through words. God can be experienced through the mind. Then how can meditation, which is just the concentration of mind, help anyone to know God? Now I have to tell one incident. There is a great speaker in India during British India. His name was Bipin Chandra Pal. At that time he was visiting England, and people had come to know that he was a great speaker. So an university invited him to give a talk. And when he entered the lecture hall, this subject had not been announced before. So on that the subject was written on the board, subject of the talk. What was the subject? In block letters they wrote nothing. So the students most probably wanted to try a joke on the speaker. But Bipin Chandra Pal was undaunted. He stood up and said, before creation there was nothing. That is the first sentence in many copies of the Bible that you read, Christian Bible. Before creation there was nothing. Then he said, no, it is not true. Nothing means this world was not there, but the source of the world must have been there, and that was God. And that God we call Brahman, Bipin Pal said. Brahman means larger than the largest. That is that God is beyond time, space and causation, and God is infinity. Infinity, eternity, yes, and pure knowledge or consciousness. That's what God is. That's what Hinduism says. But here also we are trying to describe God, which is a futile attempt, because the Hindu scriptures say that God cannot be described through words. It is very true. God is beyond time, space and causation. How can God be described? And God cannot be known by the mind. Yes, this ordinary mind that we have, that helps us to know things. The main function of the mind is knowing. It is the instrument of knowing everything. And in Hinduism, it has been clearly explained how the mind knows things. Every person has the 5 sense organs. In Sanskrit, chakshu, karna, nasika, jiva, tvak. That means the organ of eyesight, eyes. The ears, the organ of hearing. The nose, which is the organ of with which one can smell. And the tongue, with the help of that organ, people can taste food, etc. And skin, these are the 5 sense organs. With the skin we can feel whether an ant is crawling on our bodies or not. So these are the 5 sense organs. And the mind, which is inside everybody, it goes out through the sense organs. How? Each sense organ is like a door, or like an open door. And through that door the mind goes out. Goes out, and the object that has to be known is outside. It goes out and covers that object. The mind covers it, and then the mind can know what it is. This is what is taught by Hinduism, Hindu philosophy. This is how perception happens. Yes. And so can the mind know Brahman that way? No. Because Brahman is beyond time, space and causation. The other day I mentioned that only a mind which can be concentrated like a laser beam. A laser beam is, the light consists of photons, and if the photons can be made to go in a straight line, then that becomes a laser beam. And what we usually see is dissipated light. A laser beam, if a laser beam is focused on the moon, it will reach there. That's what they say. So the laser beam, in case of the mind, if it can be converted into a laser beam, that is, only one thought is there and concentrated, and it acts like a laser beam, and it goes, penetrates through the veil of time, space and causation and goes beyond. And what is beyond is Brahman or divinity. So that is one way of knowing Brahman. But who will know? Because at that time there is no ego left. Ego, it is gone. So this is how meditation can help a person to become one with divinity. Knowing Brahman means becoming one with divinity. There is no knower or an object known there. And another analogy is used. That is, if Brahman is like water, then a concentrated mind is like salt. And that salt, if we put some salt in that water, the salt will be dissolved in water. That is a large mug containing water. That means that water is divinity here. And then salt. If I go on putting more and more salt and stirring it with a spoon, the salt will become dissolved. Eventually, a state will come when the solution will not absorb any more salt. Then it is called a supersaturated solution. So if I pour that supersaturated solution into another container and then just put one crystal of salt there, then something strange will happen. Out of that supersaturated solution, some of the salt which is already dissolved in it will start coming out of that solution. A little bit of that will come out in the form of salt crystals and will settle at the bottom of the container. Something similar to that happens to a person who has been able to purify his mind and whose mind has become dissolved in divinity, so to say. And what is purification? Purification means getting rid of selfishness. Ego is at the root of selfishness. The ego is gone. A person who has been able to make his mind 100% unselfish, that mind will dissolve in divinity. So if that mind is dissolved in divinity, then how can it come out? That's what I have been trying to explain with the help of that analogy of a supersaturated solution. This analogy was developed by me. And I put that in a book which I had to write, the book on meditation. It is published by our Vedanta Center. So So if the mind is made totally unselfish, then it becomes dissolved in Brahman or divinity. Then as the mind is gone, ego is gone, so who will describe the divinity? Who will talk about it? But there are some divine incarnations like Jesus Christ, Krishna, and Ramakrishna, Sri Sarada Devi, they are divine incarnations. Sri Chaitanya, they are divine incarnations. God in human form. And they can bring their mind, when they're in human form, they can bring their portion of their mind out of that solution. And for that, just as a salt crystal helps in recrystallization, so also a trace of thought they retain. They can retain. It is called lesha avidya in Sanskrit. A trace of thought of compassion. And that helps their mind to become aware of this world. And this condition, when the mind becomes completely dissolved in divinity, is called Samadhi in Sanskrit. Total dissolution of the mind in divinity. And from that Samadhi is also called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. There is nothing there except divinity. But a trace of thought of compassion these divine incarnations can retain, or some highly developed souls can retain. And that thought will bring a portion of their mind out of that solution. And with that portion, they go on teaching others. That's what it is. Samadhi. If the other day when I gave the talk on meditation, I told you that for an ordinary person who is not a divine incarnation, if that person wants to have Samadhi experience, then that person should learn to withdraw his scattered mind. Most people's minds are scattered, and the scattered mind has to be withdrawn. And this withdrawal is called Dharma in Sanskrit. And if a person can withdraw his or her mind from the objects on which this mind is scattered, he can do that for 12 seconds, that is called dharana. And if he can keep that mind in that state for 12 times 12 seconds, that means 144 seconds, that will be called dhyana, dhyanam, or meditation. And then 12 times 144 seconds, if that long a person's mind can be put in that state, then that is called Sawadee. Actually it is 28 minutes. So to have Samadhi, it only needs 28 minutes. But it may need 28 years of practice to be able to do that. And so that Samadhi, where the mind has become completely dissolved in divinity, is called Sampragata Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, sometimes it is called Sthita Samadhi, sometimes it is called Jada Samadhi. These are all Sanskrit terms. They mean one and the same thing. So this is Samadhi. From that Samadhi state, only divine incarnations can return to the conscious level of this world with a little bit of mind. The rest of the mind is still dissolved in divinity. And when that a person has nirvikalpa samadhi or asampragyata samadhi, then that person will appear to be dead. His functions of his body will stop, and heartbeats will stop and everything. Sri Ramakrishna would have this experience. Once he went to a certain village not far away from his native village, Kamarpukur, and there he started having these samadhis. And people were amazed. They started saying that here one person has come who dies so many times during the day and again becomes alive. Yes, he would have, clinically he would die. One doctor came and examined him. There were no heartbeats, there were no pulse beats. And by touching the eyeballs, there was no reaction. This is how, at that time, they would decide whether the person is dead or not, clinically dead. And he would be declared clinically dead. But after a while, he would again become conscious of the outside world. That would happen to Sri Ramakrishna. He would die, appeared to die, and then he would become alive. The same thing happened to Jesus Christ. When he was on the cross, he surely and certainly entered into nirvikalpa samadhi, and others thought that he had died. His body was taken and put in a grotto. But after a while, he regained his consciousness and came out of the grotto. And he put on a disguise of a gardener, because he knew that had his enemies known that he was still alive, then they would try to crucify him again. And when he was in disguise, one lady named Mary Magdalene with another Mary came there, as was the custom in those days, to anoint the dead body with certain things. But they could not find the dead body. And when they came out of the grotto, they saw that gardener standing there. And the gardener addressed her as Mary. And hearing the voice and the way that gardener talked, they understood that it was Jesus Christ. And Jesus revealed his identity to them and said to them, "Go back to my friends and tell them I shall see them in Galilee." Friends means whom we call disciples. The divine incarnations never think that they are spiritual teachers or anything. God is the teacher. That's it. But they have their humility personified. And so this is what would happen to a divine incarnation. There is about this Samadhi, how one can have this Samadhi, that has also been described in Hinduism. In this, it is said that a person who is greatly interested in spiritual practice and knowing one's divinity, after many years of meditation, etc., something may happen. It is mentioned in Hinduism that the backbone is like the number 8. It has 2 holes, and if you make a pile of that, long pile, then the backbone will look like that. The cross section of the backbone will look like that. And these 2 holes, of course, cannot be seen by ordinary eyes. These are extremely fine. And according to Hinduism, there are 3 fine holes in the backbone along the entire length of the backbone. And the hole, which is like a channel, 3 channels. And the left channel is called Ida channel, and there is a central channel which is called Sushumna channel, and on the right side there is the Pingala channel. The Sushumna channel is closed at the bottom, usually. And people's energy passes through Ida channel or Pingala channel. When they are very calm and serene and all, at that time the energy passes through the left channel, Ida channel. And when the person is physically active and mentally vigorously active, then the energy passes through the right channel, Pingala channel. The Sushumna channel is closed at the bottom. But through spiritual practice, that channel opens up at the bottom. It is also said that the spiritual energy of a person remains in a state of hibernation, so to say, at the bottom of the spinal column. And then due to spiritual practice, it comes out of hibernation, spiritual power. And it starts coursing through the middle channel, Sushumna channel. And then the person starts having some spiritual experience. There are 6 centers through which the spiritual power starts going upward. And what are those centers? Where it is located, where it was in hibernation, it is called in Sanskrit Muladhara, at the base of the spinal column. And then near the organ of reproduction, there is another center. It is called Swadhisthana in Sanskrit. Then near the navel, there is another center that is called Manipura. And near the heart, there is another center, it is called Anahata. And near the neck, there is another center which is called Vishuddha. And then in between the eyebrows also there is another level, and that is called Agnya Chakra. And beyond that, there is another channel. Beyond these 6, there is another, not channel, another place which is called Sahasrara. So, when the Kundalini power becomes awakened, it starts gradually traveling through Sushumna upward towards Sahasrara. At that time, some symptoms appear. A person may start shedding tears, but those tears will come out of the outer corners of that person's eyes. And the body may start trembling. In Sanskrit that is called kampa. And tears are called ashru, kampa. The body may start trembling. Involuntary trembling of the body will be there. And there can be pulaka, that means there will be horripilation, that means all the hairs would become erect. So these are the signs that that person's Kundalini power has become awakened. And all these things would happen to Sri Ramakrishna. And others also may experience that. And then gradually, when the spiritual power will come to the center, which is near the organ of generation, there will be some kind of experience. And then it will come to the center, which is near the navel, then other experience. And when it will come to that level which is near center, near the heart, that is, then one will have another experience. At that time, it is said that a person will have some experience of divinity. Not final experience. And then it will go to the neck, and there will be more experience. Then when it is in between the eyebrows, then the spiritual aspirant will have complete experience, almost complete experience of divinity. And beyond that is Sahasrara. When the 6 levels are travelled through by the awakened spiritual power, Kundalini power, then it reaches the Sahasrara. And when it reaches the Sahasrara, is somewhere inside the brain, then person has Nirvikalpa Samadhi. All these things have been studied very carefully. And so we should go on doing our spiritual practice, such as meditation, etc. And eventually that experience may come to us. But most of us, when we have that Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when our spiritual power has gone to Sahasrara, then our bodies will be dead to the world and we will not be conscious of the world anymore. But only divine incarnations, it is possible for them to bring their mind down a little, and that's how they teach others. It is very interesting that Sri Ramakrishna, who was a divine incarnation, he once said to Sri Sarada Devi, his spiritual companion, consort, who was also a divine incarnation. Sri Ramakrishna was at that time around in his 50s, so to say, about 50. And he said and some people had come to recognize him to be a divine incarnation. And then he said to Sri Sarada Devi, now my time for departure from this world has come. Then he said, I came to this world in disguise. I am like a king who puts on a disguise and goes to different parts of his kingdom to help the subjects. Then he can know that condition, problem, etc., and can solve the problems. But when the subjects, some of the subjects recognize the king, then the king has to go back to his palace. So also some people have come to know me, that I am a divine incarnation. So therefore I have to give up my physical body and go back to my divine, completely divine form, divinity. Then Sri Sarada Devi said to him, "Here, you'll go back." Sri Ramakrishna said, "But you will remain here and you have to go on teaching people." She said, "What will I teach?" They said, "What I have taught is but little, you have to teach much more." She taught the compassion, divine compassion. She became the personification of divine compassion. Her compassion was for everyone. She used to say, "I am the mother of the good and mother of the wicked." She once said, "If a needle pricks one of you, then I feel like a sword has entered my heart." She feels the pain. That's what she said. So such, in this manner, the divine incarnations act. And also in Hinduism, that saying is there. Uttisthata, Jagrata, Prajva Varan Nibodhata. You are like so many people dream walking in dreams. You wake up and get to know that, intellectually know that you are divinity. And then finding the superior ones, you become liberated. Who are the superior ones? The divine incarnations. With their help, we can know our divinity. It is they who have taught us to meditate and think of God the way such thinking will lead us towards the experience of our own divinity. So we have to take their help. Let us hope and pray that with their help, someday we all will experience the divinity. It only depends on how hard we shall try following the instructions that they give about meditation and other spiritual disciplines.